When you're designing a public transit-based travel game show, you're going to need to make some changes depending on what part of the world you play in. Take Jetlag, a show that I have talked about countless times on this channel, and one that I have a very big video in production right now. I thought it might make for a quick fun video to discuss what each region of the world brings to the show. The four full-length seasons are Connect 4, Battle for America, Arctic Escape, and the currently airing Stateside Scramble. They also have two minigames, Hide and Seek New York City and the underappreciated Magic the Gathering, and you could even add the pilot season, Crime Spree, if you want. The four full-length seasons, as well as Crime Spree, have one thing in common, and that's that they heavily rely on plane travel and cars. While there is some passenger rail in the United States, where these games are mainly taking place, the networks aren't nearly as extensive as Europe's. Therefore, they need to rely on the expansive United States air travel network, as well as its roads. This creates a problem because cars aren't good for gameplay because they give too much flexibility. In some games, they try to limit the power of rental cars by restricting them near state borders, or limiting how far they can be used. Still, rental cars are kinda necessary to make a lot of the American games work, because a lot of places are inaccessible without them. We can see this in one of the latest episodes of Stateside Scramble, where Amy and Sam needed to claim Iowa and South Dakota, which are rural states that aren't well connected, or even connected in South Dakota's case, to the Amtrak network, and don't even have the best flight options. These seasons also rely far more on planes, because the distances in the United States are vast, and they make getting around much easier. The downside is that they are expensive and bad for the environment. Finally, 3 out of 4 of these mainline seasons are claimer-style games. Players need to complete a challenge in a certain state to claim it. While these types of games can be played elsewhere, and the US can dip into other genres, it seems like they're the easiest to design around the US's flaws. Tag and Hide and Seek seem to work better on train networks, and it's notable that the only hide and seek game played here was a mini-season meant to advertise the home game. We have had 7 full-length seasons set in Europe, with those seasons being 4 tags, 2 hide-and-seeks, and Schengen Showdown. Europe is the location where Jetlag films its staple, big tent, moneymaker seasons. Interestingly, you could argue that the first seasons of Tag and Hide-and-Seek were very different and experimental compared to the Jetlag seasons that preceded them. And you'd be right. However, both of these experiments paid off so well that they are now the 2 main game formats keeping the channel running. The formats have been repeated and milked to the point where some people now think they're getting stale, a complaint that I've talked about in depth with both of them. Even Schengen Showdown, the one outlier here, has done pretty well in the numbers. It probably helps that it's one of the more simpler and straightforward claimer games, which broadens its mass appeal. This season is basically a US-styled game transplanted onto the European continent, and I, and many other fans, think that it works wonderfully. I even went as far as to claim that they should do the format again. Both Tag and Hide and Seek use trains as their primary method of transportation. Trains have the advantage of giving players a lot more flexibility in making decisions. Schengen Showdown is a hybrid season that uses both trains and planes, usually having teams fly from one point in the European continent, taking the trains for a bit to hit a couple countries, and then flying to another border region to do more claiming. Still, Europe's well-developed train network means that players don't need to rely on rental cars like they would have to in the United States. As of July 2026, we have had 4 games set in East Asia: Capture the Flag, Hide and Seek Japan, Snake, and Rail Rush. However, it's important to note that a 5th game is in production right now, and it looks like it's going to be a race across Japan, which I am very down for. All 4 of these seasons are rail-based, but the peculiarities of the rail networks of the countries affect the games. There's enough rail to make a game out of these networks, but not necessarily enough to do something like, say, Tag. The island of Taiwan, for example, has a decent but circular rail network, so they designed a game where claiming rail stations was the goal. Snake took advantage of South Korea's okay but not great density of trains, and Capture the Flag took advantage of Japan's long but narrow shape. Also, all three of these seasons haven't done that well in the numbers. I've already discussed how both Capture the Flag and Snake haven't had the best critical reception, which is a shame because they had fascinating concepts that could have worked great. Luckily, Rail Rush was a really well designed game that gave us a lot of cool locations and challenges and strategy. It also didn't do that well. If Europe is the location where the mainstream seasons are made, then East Asia is where the very experimental cult classics are created. I am glad that they keep coming back here to try new countries and new game formats, because it keeps the show interesting and fresh. The one outlier here is Hide and Seek Japan, which is a contender for the best season of the show. While the original Switzerland season was good, it had some issues that this season of the show not only fixed, but turned into a playable card game. This season gave us the foundation that one and a half later seasons, and countless fan games, would use. We've only had two full season games here, one set in New Zealand and one set in Australia. Because neither country has particularly good rail transit, nor a lot of airports, the crew had to get creative to make functioning games here. Both of the seasons here are controversial for different reasons, though I will say that I like both of them. Both seasons also tend to rely on the location more and use location based challenges.